Have you ever been alone in a house during a raging storm? And suddenly, the lights go out, leaving only a small candle flickering in the darkness. You hear something from the shadowy corner, a sound that is not human. A dark figure appears, moving closer, cold and terrifying, gripping you with fear. Will you stand against this darkness? Or will a single candle go out, letting the secrets in the shadows consume you? A single candle glowed in the middle of the storm. The wind blew so hard that the window slammed against the wall. The lights in the house went out instantly, leaving only the flickering glow of the trembling candle. The sound of rain pounded on the roof like drums of fear. A young woman stood in the middle of the room, gripping the candle tightly. She heard something from the dark corner of the house. A sound like something heavy dragging across the old wooden floor. The damp smell of dust and wood mixed with the faint scent of melting wax. She tried to look into the darkness, but the candlelight shook violently. The shadows on the wall began to move like living things. She slowly stepped back until her back hit the door. A faint breathing sound came from behind the curtain. Her heart beat so loudly it echoed in the silence. The candle in her hand quivered, hot wax dripping onto her skin. She lifted her hand higher, the light revealing wet footprints on the floor. Those footprints led toward the darkest corner of the house. The rain still poured outside, but the sound was drowned out by a soft, dragging noise near the door. The woman took a deep breath. A single candle glowed in the middle of the storm. The wind blew so hard that the window slammed against the wall. The lights in the house went out instantly, leaving only the flickering glow of the trembling candle. The sound of rain pounded on the roof like drums of fear. A young woman stood in the middle of the room, gripping the candle tightly. She heard something from the dark corner of the house. A sound like something heavy dragging across the old wooden floor. The damp smell of dust and wood mixed with the faint scent of melting wax. She tried to look into the darkness, but the candlelight shook violently. The shadows on the wall began to move like living things. She slowly stepped back until her back hit the door. A faint breathing sound came from behind the curtain. Her heart beat so loudly it echoed in the silence. The candle in her hand quivered, hot wax dripping onto her skin. She lifted her hand higher, the light revealing wet footprints on the floor. Those footprints led toward the darkest corner of the house. The rain still poured outside, but the sound was drowned out by a soft, dragging noise near the door. The woman took a deep breath. Dash dash dash. She stood frozen, her heart racing as if it would leap out of her chest. The candle she held shook violently, threatening to go out at any moment. She lifted the candle higher to illuminate the dark corner. The dark shadow moving on the wall seemed to be creeping closer. The breathing she had heard before grew louder and clearer. The sound was not human, but like someone who had long been forgotten by the world. The wooden floor beneath her feet groaned in rhythm with the pounding rain. Every step she took backward made the wet footprints stand out more clearly in the candlelight. She felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Even in the small room, the candlelight could not pierce the darkness in that corner. She tried to call someone's name, but her voice vanished into the storm. The rain hammering the roof seemed to chant, summoning something mysterious. Looking at the footprints again, she realized they were not following a normal path. The footprints swirled in a circle around her. Her heart seemed to stop for a split second. From one corner of the room, a massive dark shadow slowly began to appear. The shadow gradually moved forward, as if floating above the floor. The candlelight reflected off it, revealing a figure resembling a human, but twisted and deformed. She stepped back, her back hitting an old table. The shadow moved slowly, yet with heavy, deliberate force. It raised an arm, pointing directly at her. The sound of heavy breathing from the figure drowned out the pounding rain. The air around her grew so cold that she struggled to breathe. She clutched her chest with her free hand. The candlelight revealed the figure's eyes. They gleamed like dark glass. She took another step backward, and the shadow seemed to follow her every move. Her vision blurred, the candlelight flickering faster, casting monstrous shapes on the walls. The footprints beneath her began to steam, as if the floor itself was alive. She realized she was surrounded, trapped by shadows and whispers she could not understand. Her fingers tightened around the candle, the wax burning her hand, but she could not release it. A sudden gust of wind blew through the room, making the candle flame bend like a living thing. The shadow's breathing grew louder, almost synchronized with her heartbeat. She tried to scream, but only a whisper emerged, swallowed by the storm. The twisted figure moved closer, its presence pressing down on her, suffocating her with darkness. She backed into a corner, the walls closing in as the candlelight wavered. Her mind raced, trying to remember the way out, but the footprints had vanished. In the darkness, a whisper echoed her name, cold and hollow, sending ice through her veins. The candle flickered violently, throwing grotesque shadows that danced across the walls like living demons. The shadow raised its other arm, stretching impossibly, reaching for her. She felt the air thicken, her lungs struggling for breath, as if the room itself had turned into a trap. The faint smell of smoke and wet wood filled her nostrils, and the sound of the storm outside seemed to vanish. Her body froze, every muscle locked in terror, as the shadow's form began to loom over her completely. A chill ran through her, not just from the cold, but from a presence older and darker than anything she had ever felt. The candlelight flickered one last time, revealing a face, or what seemed like a face, emerging from the shadow. Eyes hollow and empty, yet filled with intent, stared into hers, and for a moment, the room went completely silent. She could feel its gaze inside her mind, turning her fear into something physical, something she could feel on her skin. The storm outside faded into insignificance, only the shadow and her heartbeat existed. She lifted the candle as high as she could, its trembling light a small defiance against the growing darkness. The shadow wavered slightly, reacting to the light, but did not retreat. Her chest heaved, breath shallow, the heat from the candle burning her fingers, yet she held it steady. The footprints began to reappear, leading in impossible directions, forming circles and arcs around her. Whispers rose from them, unintelligible, yet somehow familiar, echoing secrets she was never meant to hear. The shadow's form started to split and multiply, creating smaller figures that crawled across the walls and floor. She realized she was no longer alone in the room, something ancient, patient, and unseen was watching her. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet her legs would not move. The candle, the only barrier between her and the darkness, trembled violently as if aware of the approaching horror. Then, without warning, the figures paused, all turning their gaze toward her in unison. Her breath caught in her throat as the darkness thickened, pressing in on all sides. The temperature dropped further, and she could see her own breath in the faint candlelight. The air vibrated with a low hum, a sound that resonated inside her skull. She squeezed her eyes shut, praying, yet the darkness did not waver. The figures shifted closer, their shapes twisting and elongating, reaching for her with impossible limbs. Her fingers burned from holding the candle, but she refused to let go. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed in the room, though no mouth could be seen. It spoke her name again, but this time it was not a question, it was a command. The shadows pressed nearer, the candle flickering violently as though fighting for survival. She took a trembling step back, but the shadows mirrored her movement perfectly. The candle's flame bent toward the ceiling, illuminating a space behind the dark figures. There, in the dim light, she glimpsed something she could not fully comprehend: objects, shapes, and faces intertwined, forming a scene both familiar and alien. The shadows hesitated, as if aware that the candle revealed more than just light. Her heart pounded harder than ever, the sweat on her skin mixing with the cold that seeped from the floor. The whispering grew louder, voices overlapping, chanting, calling, beckoning. And in that instant, she realized the candle was no longer just a source of light, it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. The shadows surged forward once more, faster this time, and the candle flickered toward its final moment, threatening to leave her in complete darkness. She braced herself, every nerve alert, every thought focused on holding the candle high. The darkness pressed against her, yet the candle remained stubbornly lit, a fragile beacon in a room alive with unseen terror. The storm outside roared, the rain pounding like drums of fate, but she stood, clutching the candle, her eyes locked on the twisted forms around her. Her chest heaved, sweat dripping from her forehead, and she realized that everything she feared was not behind her, It was here, surrounding her, waiting for the moment the light went out. And the candle trembled, a single flickering flame, defying the storm, the shadows, and the ancient presence that sought her. The room held its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash of light and darkness. The candle flickered once more, small but unwavering, as if summoning a hidden strength within her. The shadows hesitated, their forms wavering, uncertain of their hold over the fragile light. She took a deep, steadying breath, feeling her fear settle into quiet determination. With one careful step forward, she moved toward the darkest corner of the room, holding the candle high. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if sensing her courage, yet their presence remained oppressive. She spoke softly, her voice steady, whispering her own name, grounding herself in the reality of the world she knew. The figures swirled and twisted, but gradually their edges blurred and faded, dissolving into nothingness. The air grew warmer, the cold seeping from the room lifting with each heartbeat. The whispers faded, leaving only the gentle patter of rain on the roof. The candle's flame steadied, casting a soft, golden light across the room, banishing the last remnants of darkness. Her body relaxed, though her heart still beat fast, a reminder of the ordeal she had faced. The footprints vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared, leaving the floor smooth and silent. She lowered the candle, feeling its warmth flow into her hands, a quiet reassurance of life and hope. For a long moment, she simply stood there, listening to the storm outside, now a distant echo rather than a threat. A sense of calm washed over her, a gentle reminder that even in the deepest darkness, a single light could endure. She placed the candle on the table, its glow filling the room with warmth and security. The storm outside began to ease, rain softening into a steady drizzle, and the wind whispered against the walls rather than battering them. Her eyes rested on the corner where shadows had loomed, now empty, peaceful, and still. She realized that the terror she had faced was not just outside herself, but within, the fear that could be challenged, held, and finally released. A quiet smile formed on her lips as she stepped toward the door, ready to greet the world beyond, stronger for having faced the darkness. The candle flickered one last time, then burned steadily, a symbol of courage, resilience, and the quiet victory of light over shadow. The night remained, but it no longer threatened her. She had endured, and the storm, both outside and within, had passed. She opened the door and stepped into the first gentle light of dawn, carrying with her the knowledge that even in the fiercest darkness, hope could burn bright. And with that, the candle in the storm had fulfilled its purpose, to guide her through fear, into strength, and toward peace.